So this is our second video in what I am dubbing the anti-Republican Trump trilogy, and I think this is important to, once again, as I said last time, to really highlight, because we saw last time and discussed the Republican pushback on Trump's Ukraine comments. However, it's not just here, or at least that shall we say, Republicans are upset about, because domestically, the Republicans are feeling the heat. There is a lot of footage of Republicans being confronted in some very, very heated town hall debates. There is footage, there is like audio, shall we say, of phone calls going into Republican senators, congressmen, governors about what Trump is doing. We've got governors as well, Republican governors, begging Trump, please don't cut this funding, to our state. Oh, it's fine if it happens to another state, but not my state, please, not my state. So it is very, very interesting, because I always said, I will always continue to say, how really far are Republicans prepared to go on this train, like this Trump train? I don't think they are. And the fact that you have had, and I've only just learned about this, for the past couple of years, there has been an anti-Trump conservative summit held at the exact same time as CPAC. And CPAC has become this monumental MAGA cult pro-Trump Republican convention. Meanwhile, of course, as we'll see, across the city at the exact same time, there has been an ever-growing anti-Republican Trump convention growing called Principles First, and it is getting bigger. And I will remind my American viewers, because you may not know this, there was a pro-green Tory group that were massively for net zero, that were aghast even now that the Conservatives are turning against net zero, sort of saying, no, we should be going on net zero. It's really good for the country. It's really good for our economy. It's really good for the environment. People want this. We know it's popular. Why are we not pursuing it? The only problem is that they never coalesced. They never got into that single pressure group. And there's the last video we saw about, it is possible for Republicans to put pressure on Trump to U-turn on comments regarding Ukraine. What does this say about the rest of Trump's policy, his domestic agenda he potentially wants to do? It shows you need to be organized, you need to coalesce, and then you can start to really apply the pressure. So I think it's worth covering this convention, because it is kind of interesting. Some interesting stuff said at this convention. And of course, some Republicans coming out and saying really how concerned they are at some of the stuff Donald Trump has said and wants to do. So before we do get into this, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. Down below, there are links to my Patreon page, the One of Donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can well buy me coffee, the YouTube thank you button, and of course, as always, there's the Pony Club as well. So let's crack on then into this. So the anti-Trump conservative summit charts now an alternative to the CPAC MAGA Fest. So while Donald Trump and his acolytes take a victory lap at the Conservative Political Action Conference this week, some of the president's now staunchest right-leaning critics will convene for their own summit just 10 miles away. So that is incredibly close, but this always has been very much the case, apparently. So the Principles First Summit, which will be held in Washington from Friday to Sunday, has now become a venue for anti-Trump conservatives to voice their very deep-seated concerns about the Make America Great Again faction of the Republican Party. And the gathering has now grown in size and scope. As its organizers now confront another 4 years of Trump's leadership, they are now stretching beyond the party lines with speakers such as the billionaire Mark Cuban, Jared Polis, and Democratic Governor of Colorado to now craft their vision for a new approach to US politics. So what you can see here happening is discussions talking. We are really concerned about all this MAGA stuff, about the direction the Republican Party is going. We are going to now see what we can do, have these talks about it. We want to go in a different direction. So it's now at that stage having those talks, but they've got to coalesce at some point. They've got to form a group, or else they'll be exactly like the Green Tories. They'll voice their dissatisfaction at what is going on, but they never coalesce, they never become a group, and they never are able to effectively put that pressure on not only the MAGA part of the party, but even Donald Trump himself. So that seems to be where they are at the moment. They are there. There's the idea there, but it hasn't yet fully formed to come together to create that, that pressure group. So that vision looks, of course, quite different than it did just 6 years ago, when the conservative attorney Heath Mayo founded the Principles First. At this very same time, Mayo formed a rank and file as a Republican who supported the presidential campaigns of Mitt Romney and Marco Rubio, and hoped now to present an anti-Trump alternative to fellow conservatives. He said, "It started as a disgruntled Republicans and conservatives, but that was, of course, back in 2019, when that objective seemed to perhaps to be more realistic, or people were at least holding out hope that the party would come to its senses," Mayo said. Over the years, it has now grown. The group's first summit attracted just a couple of hundred attendees back in 2020. But as the guest count at this year's now sold-out event has increased to about 1,100. So already that has been an increase. Yeah, but going from 100 to like over 1,000, that's not bad in just a couple of years. He said, "We have been surprised, actually, with the number of people who have now signed up to come. I think this hunger now for new spaces in our politics, this new ideas and new faces. Those new faces now include Cuban, who plans to address the summit on Saturday, as his name has now been floated as a potential presidential candidate back in 2028. He is a vocal supporter of Kamala Harris's campaign for the White House last year, and Cuban might seem like a very unorthodox choice for a presidential candidate, as he has never served, of course, in public office. But at the same time, that was, of course, said of Trump 10 years ago. Clearly now, we live in an age of disruption, and things are changing really fast. Democrats may have to learn that lesson the hard way in November," Mayo said. "That is what I hope the weekend will be like. A time for people to set aside the party and all these labels and really ask, where is the country going?" The summit list of speakers do reflect that mission, ranging from John Bolton, Trump's former national security advisor, to Polis, the Colorado governor, who occasionally clashed with fellow Democrats over how to navigate the new Trump era. Other speakers include Chris Christie, the former Republican governor of New Jersey, who has become a very fierce critic of Trump. And, of course, 4 of the police officers who responded to the Capitol 6 January in 2021, as the group of President Now supporters attempted to disrupt the congressional certification of Biden's electoral victory. "I feel like the character and integrity of the two are now non-negotiable. Key components of Principles First," said Rich Lagos, a former founder of the group, called Leaving MAGA, and a speaker at the summit. He said, "If you look at the attendees, it's a large and diverse swathe of authors, thinkers, and now former elected officials. And of course, it doesn't very skew right-wing. It doesn't skew left-wing. But what they all share in common is that devotion to truth, democracy, and a liberal democracy, and the rule of law. So one of the reasons why I want to cover this and cover this stuff and what these people are saying is that it is very clear, very, very clear, there is an anti-Republican, well, an anti-Trump Republican faction growing. And it seems to be growing in strength. And it seems to be really exploding, especially because of their action, or I should say, the reaction to the election of Donald Trump, and especially with a lot of stuff he has done recently. So we are seeing Trump's polling ratings really start to tank. And it's not just his polling ratings that are starting to tank. It is a lot of Republican governors, congressmen, and senators going that way as well, as they are seen to be endorsing what Trump is doing, especially as we might see in the next couple of weeks, the Republicans go after Medicaid and Medicare and a couple of other really important federal programs that are very, very popular, even with Republicans. What do you think might happen to the approval rating of those people? And especially as there are a couple of elections happening, not big ones, not like, like a midterm election, like the next 2 years, but there are a couple of like local and regional elections happening as well. So it could get very interesting. And I think that as you see opposition build against Trump, as you are seeing almost immediately in this, and you get Trump regret syndrome, and a lot of people who sat out the last election, being the biggest voting bloc, now comes to realize, oh, why didn't I go out and vote? I thought Kamala had this in the bag. Turns out not. Turns out if you choose not to go out and vote, there are consequences. And unfortunately, a lot of people in America chose that election for God knows what reason to sit out. And they are now aghast at that. But anyway, let's get back to this. So Kyle Sweetser, another speaker at the summit and of course former Trump supporter who voted for Harris in November, hopes that this event can now offer an example of a productive political discourse now to his fellow voters. I think it is more crucial than ever to offer some sort of platform, at least to reaffirm our commitment to core democratic values and principles. And I'm really looking forward to this some of the good discussions and hopefully the exchange of ideas that will strengthen our democracy. Sweeten knows very firsthand how difficult it can be to reach Trump supporters who have embraced now the MAGA movement. He voted for Trump twice before starting to question that loyalty, prompting him to now diversify his media diet and seek out more information about the president's record. So that is eventually what happens. It's these MAGA people are so deep in the bubble, they don't realize what else is going on because they are just hooked on the Trump juice. And once they start drinking it, they just can't stop and they just continue that. But it's guys like this who go, question that loyalty. He's then diversified his media diet. He's then sought out more information, and especially what Trump has done. And then he's gone, why am I voting for this guy? What was I doing? Yeah, waking up from a coma, going, what on earth happened? What was I doing? Anyway, he considers himself proof, of course, that Trump supporters can change their ways, a message he wants to bring to the Principles First Summit. He said, I want some of the Democrats to understand that there are a lot of Republicans out there who are good people. And if Democrats work hard for those people, then they will be able to pull some of those people over to their side, Sweeney said. But unfortunately, it's going to be a very heavy lift. It's going to take a lot of work and it's going to take patience. Sweetser and Lagos both predicted that Trump's eventual failure to now follow through on his key campaign promises, like addressing high inflation seen in recent years, would chip away at the president's base and perhaps now even spur some of his supporters to reconsider their political identity. I think that will happen. Trump's failure on his promises, absolutely. Is going to kick in a lot of that. And when I think some of his supporters really start to question, well, why didn't Trump do that? Why didn't Trump do this? Well, Look what happened to all the support that the Conservatives had in the Red Wall and the promises they made to all those people in the Red Wall that then they didn't follow through on. You know, they got massive electoral consequences on that. Some, of course, early examples of this trend may already be emerging. In Sweet's home state of Alabama, about 250 consumers now of a public utility company based in Huntsville just learned they would see a $100 surcharge on their energy bills after one of Trump's executive orders paused a program aimed at lowering heating costs for low-income households. This is it. You vote thinking Trump's got your best interests in heart, but Trump goes ahead and does this. You now all of a sudden have a $100 surcharge. A lot of these, Trump voters are finding out what Trump is doing, and they are being hit right where a lot of voters matters most, right in their wallet, and they are not happy. They are not happy. They are having to live with the consequences because we have seen a lot of Schadenfreude of these Trump voters laughing at the pain of what is going on at some of their fellow voters, saying, oh, it doesn't matter so long as you are feeling the pain as well, the pain that apparently we felt. But as soon as they start to feel that pain as well, all of a sudden, oh, well, hold on, this isn't fair. This is why you've seen a lot of governors try to desperately plead with Trump to get exemptions on a lot of these cuts for their states, because they don't want it on their state. They know what's going to happen to their constituents, and their constituents are going to be very, very upset. So he continues, I am willing to bet that many of those in the MAGA community right now are going to realize that the president is not going to fix anything from them, Logus said. When the scales start to fall a bit from their eyes, I want them to know that there is an exit ramp. And to be honest, I think that is a good strategy to pursue. I think that is a very good strategy to pursue. To let them know that you were conned, you were lied to, here's the exit ramp. Because I think we need to be doing the same and reaching out to some of these Brexit voters that we know have flipped on this. I really think that is something that we need to do over here on that as well. That exit ramp, of course, eventually brought Laos to the Democratic National Convention, where, of course, he was featured in a video explaining his transformation from a diehard Trump supporter to a Harris voter. Harris may not have been successful in November, but Mayo does still see a potential path to victory for a pro-democracy candidate who can unify the ideological diverse group represented at Principles First. He said, there is still a broad coalition out there that can be assembled, and it has got to be constructive. It has got to have ideas and solutions for the challenges that Americans face, like the affordability crisis. At a time when it feels hopeless, it feels like there is now a reason to be hopeful when you see that many people coming together to talk about these things. And that is very, very interesting when you see that. When you see that conversation being had, when you sort of say, well, look, we know he's going to fail a lot on these promises, and we are going to be there to give those people an off-ramp to say, you're not going to point and laugh in your face saying, ha ha, we are right. We're going to say, yes, unfortunately, we were right. Now, here's what you can do to do about it. Come join us in this fight, in this pushback to help make things right. Now, of course, it depends on what those solutions are, what that actually gets talked about. But again, it's very interesting there's that type of conversation happening now in America, and especially with that anti-Republican, well, the anti-Trump Republican grouping that is coming together. It now has to start to solidify. And I think you'll probably see that maybe over the next certainly year or two, certainly in the run up to the midterm elections. Because if I'll tell you this now, if the Democrats, Democrats have to sort of pull their finger out, that's true. But if Trump does fail, by that time, when he's already on track for those failures, he will become a lame duck. The next, 4 years we have worried about only become, thank God it was 2, because the Democrats can, put up a very good resistance against him. And then, of course, it is what comes next after that. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. Let me know what you think down to this stuff below as well. I'd be very interested to see what people have to think of that. Do you think what that guy said was right? Do you think it is good to give these people an off-ramp from MAGA? I think so very much as well at that point. But, of course, let me know what you think down below, and we'll see you all next time.